of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join in a moment of silence for our fallen servicemen and women. Thank you. All right, so we're going to begin this evening's meeting with an oath of office for police officer. Deputy Mayor Marciano will do the oath of office. Commissioner Jackson, would you like to introduce?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm proud to introduce Matthew Horan. Born and raised in Long Island, became interested in law enforcement from a young age. Has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from SUNY Farmingdale, and he joined the NYPD. He spent 9 years, and what we liked when we interviewed him, he had multifaceted. He did patrol. He was also a youth officer, and he worked in the neighborhood coordination units, which I think fits Garden City very well. He's passionate about his work. The officers are raving about him already, and we think he'll be a great asset in keeping the village safe.
Thank you.
Let's see if this works. Raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Matthew Harron,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
I will support the Constitution of the United States,
and the Constitution of the State of New York
the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the laws and ordinances of the Village of Garden City,
laws and ordinances of the Village of Garden City.
and that I will faithfully discharge
I will faithfully discharge
the duties of a police officer with the Garden City Police Department
the duties of a police officer with the Garden City Police Department
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
By the powers vested in me as Deputy Mayor and Police Commissioner of the Village of Garden City, I declare you duly appointed. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll have your family up for a picture as well.
No, that's all
Okay.
Well, I put him on the spot.
One with us, yeah.
Guys. It was my idea. Thank you.
All right, so going to go now to a feature that was added not that long ago, quick resident comments. No longer than 1 minute each. The intent is if there's a resident who came tonight but can't stay for the whole meeting, they have to leave. They can come up and make their quick comment now. So it's reserved for residents who can't stay for the meeting. Is there anyone in the room who has a quick comment? All right. And we'll move on now to comments by our department heads, beginning with Mr. Baroni.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. DPW will be covering 10 items on the agenda this evening. I'd like to direct your attention to item number 7 on the Public Works. Item number 7 is a request to approve a change order in the amount of $48,000 for the library HVAC system replacement. This change order is the result of a change in the project scope and is to replace the control system or thermostats. It is in response to recent complaints from the library about certain spaces feeling cooler or warmer than other spaces throughout the building, and or thermostats not functioning at all. The existing thermostats are ran off compressed air, aka pneumatics, and over time the little tubes that carry the air become brittle, cracked, and fail or do not give the proper control. The new thermostats will be controlled by wire, which is much more reliable. The original design for this project included the replacement of the outside chiller and inside air handlers since they were failing and reached the end of their useful life. Item number 8, I would like to request to have this item removed from the consent calendar. After recent internal conversations, there may be a change in the scope of services that are required and will require additional review. Item number 9 is a request to engage H2M at a cost of $5,500 to conduct the Nassau County Department of Health's required semi-annual inspection of our 5 water storage tanks. The inspection of all village water tanks is a health department requirement, and this proposal will complete the mandated inspections for this calendar year. H2M has been conducting these inspections on behalf of the village for many years and have the comparative history of all village tanks. Item number 10 is a request to engage DMB in the amount of $74,500 to design the 2024 curb, sidewalk, and road improvements contract. The proposal includes the design of 14 roads that will be presented at the 24-25 budget season for resurfacing. The design includes upgrades to ADA ramps, drainage as required, correction of ponding locations, and sidewalk surveys. Item number 11 is a request to accept the maintenance bond in the amount of $687,705.92 from MDB Construction Corp. For the completion of the project to replace the roof at the DPW garage and the Parks garage. The maintenance bond guarantees the work for 18 months from the acceptance of this bond. The bond has been reviewed and approved by bond counsel. Item number 12, Mr. Swazi, Village Council, excuse me. Item number 12 will be covered by Mr. Swazi later on. Item number 13 is a request to transfer $525,362.89 from Business District Paving to DPW equipment for the purchase of 2 recycling trucks. The first truck is a new truck at a cost of $437,962.89, which will take 18 months to deliver. And the second truck is a refurbished truck at a cost of $87,400, which will take 60 days to deliver. This is in response to the recycling truck 208 catching fire and being placed out of service. The refurbished truck will be utilized so that we will have 2 recycling trucks in operation while we await delivery of the new recycling truck. On the normal operations, we have 2 recycling trucks being utilized daily, and we currently only have 2 recycling trucks in our fleet, one being out of service. The future plan is to keep the refurbished truck as a backup truck. We obtained a verbal price quote of approximately $50,000 to $100,000 plus, with no certainty, to repair the truck that went on fire. We are also expecting to get reimbursement from our insurance company for the new recycling truck. Item number 14 is a request to approve snowplow rates submitted by Pratt Brothers in accordance with their contract with Nassau Community College. Pratt Brothers will assist the village with snow plowing in our village parking lots during heavy snow events. Item number 15 is a request for approval to apply for the 2023 Transportation Alternatives Program grant and to engage Creighton Manning to provide application support in preparing 1 or more applications for the funding of pedestrian access and safety projects. The application development will be completed at no cost to the village. If we get approved for the grant money, we will then get a proposal from the vendor to perform engineering services related to the grant. This grant is an 80-20 split, where the state pays for 80% of all project-related costs, including engineering services. Item number 16, Mr. Swazi will cover later. Under award of bids, item number 17 is a request to award items 3 through 14 to Long Island Precast for the purchase of precast catch basins. These items are used on an as-needed basis. Item number 18 is a request to ratify the extension of the bid for disposal of mixed broken asphalt with Rayson Materials. This contract is utilized to dispose of mixed broken asphalt from road repairs and is used on an as-needed basis. That is all the items I'm covering tonight on the agenda. If there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
John, two questions for you. Number one, looking at number 7, you talked about thermostats being replaced. Is this part of the original project? Have these things already broken or are these old ones?
These were not part of the original design. These are older thermostats.
Okay.
I liken this to if the outside condenser at your house went bad, you wouldn't go replace all the thermostats in your house. You would just replace the outside unit.
Okay, so it's part of that. So it's replacing the outside unit, then we have to actually replace these as well, is what it is.
Correct. So the original contract was just to replace the inside unit and the outside unit.
Second question, 7th Street, how's that going as far as the work we're doing with the new crosswalk?
7th Street is progressing very aggressively. We should be wrapped up with the road portion tomorrow. We're hoping Monday to have full access to the road. The remainder of the work will be performed on the sidewalk. So there'll be some sidewalk closures. We're expecting to have it fully wrapped up next week.
Excellent, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Mayor, I did have 2 questions for Mr. Barone. Mr. Barone, if I could just direct your attention to number 10. Was this bid out and how did the whole process go there?
Yes, as we did put this out for an RFP and we received bids from approximately 8 to 10 vendors, and the price ranged from $74,500 to about $500,000.
And have we done work with B&B before? Do we know them?
Yes, we have done projects with them in the past.
Excellent. And then finally, with regard to number 13, that truck must be quite a piece of equipment. Can you just explain a little bit as to why the cost is $437,000?
That is a great question. It is a recycling truck. I wouldn't say it is a highly technical advanced piece of machinery. I'm sorry.
Trustee Finneran, I can just tell you that the truck's about 8.5 years old. And the 2 trucks, they're the exact same age, the 2 trucks that were in operation until recently. They came to us at a cost of $250,000 8.5 years ago.
Okay.
And they came via grants at the time. But a lot of things have gone up in price, including steel. So that's probably driving the new price.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you very much. All set.
There's no change in the type of truck. It is, John, same as what we see going up and down. Yeah.
Correct. Yes, this is our standard recycling truck.
Good evening, Mayor, trustees, everyone in attendance. Tonight on the agenda, there's one item under finance. There's 2 items under that one item. It's write-off of uncollectible accounts receivables. The first item is related to a damage to village sign resulting from an accident. The total amount of the claim was $162.03. Their insurance company paid $120.44, leaving the outstanding balance of $41.59. The legal committee has deemed this not worthy to collect, so we're requesting that the board authorize us to write off this amount. The second item is related to some landscaping work that was done by the village surrounding the toll house last summer. They were billed, but did not pay this amount of $140. Since the chamber is no longer occupying the space, we're requesting to write off this amount as well. I also have a treasurer's report to the board this evening. So I will provide that now. Okay. So we've completed our 22-23 year-end audit, and we're in the process of finalizing the financial statements. So I wanted to give the board an update of how we ended the 22-23 fiscal year and how we are doing so far in the first quarter of this fiscal year. I will start off by going over the summary of revenues. For the general fund, the village received $67.5 million in revenues. which resulted in favorable variance of 2.5 million over budget. This is mainly due to a few departments. The building department collected about $700,000 in revenues and permit fees for major projects that were going on Franklin Avenue in the last fiscal year. Police and court revenues exceeded the budget by $400,000 in parking revenues. The DPW department actually had a deficit of $526,000. This is mostly due to the budgeted revenues of $1.1 million for reimbursements of the business district paving project that was deferred. Since those, reimbursements, the project didn't go forward, the expenditures weren't spent, the revenues weren't collected. But this was partially offset by higher sidewalk permits received of almost $200,000, as well as higher CHIPS aid received of $419,000. Under other general, the village received almost $1 million of interest income. This is a result of the high interest rates. When we put together the budget, that's almost a year in advance, and interest rates, as you know, went up significantly. We also invested in T-bills, and we also started investing in a municipal cooperative called New York Class, and we received very favorable rates as a result. We also had a sale of property to the Long Island Railroad as a result of the third track project, and that was like a swath of land near the railroad station. The village received $689,000. The village also received a total of $463,000 in special grants. $200,000 of that was for the library's children's room project. $250,000 was from the fire department SCBA grant that they applied for. And $12,500 was from NYSERDA for the LED project. We recently received the second half of that payment as well. Under the enterprise funds, the pool received ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan Act funds, in the amount of $212,000, and that was applied to the pool vinyl lining project. The water fund received New York State grants for the water well treatment projects of $8.1 million. As you recall, New York State approved the village of a total of $25.7 million in grants for those projects. The total cost of those projects is about $55 million. So almost half of that will be reimbursed through grants. And of that 25.7, the village received already to date $8.1 million. The water fund also exceeded the budget in interest income of $411,000 and in higher water sales of about $434,000. Under expenditures, the general fund had $65.3 million of expenditures and $500,000 of encumbrances for a total of $65.9 million, which is $4 million under budget. Some of that had to do with within most of the departments, there were open positions or unfilled positions throughout the year, or hiring at lower salaries or less part-time help, and less benefit and taxes as a result, and that was about $1.4 million. We also had lower expenditures in legal fees of about $633,000. We had a very mild winter, so snow removal costs were, lower by about $300,000. We had less judgments and claims or tax settlement expenditures of about $268,000. Overall contractual services were lower by $388,000. And we had unused contingency of about $159,000. In the enterprise funds, they had all across the board favorable variances due to an OPEB adjustment. OPEB is other post-employment benefits or healthcare costs. OPEB is an actuarially determined future liability for current employees and retirees. So this is a future liability. Because the enterprise funds function like a business, we record all long-term assets and liabilities in the financials, as opposed to the general fund, which only records current assets and liabilities. based on GASB standards. GASB is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. So we have to follow those guidelines. So this year, the OPEB liability was a lot lower. We started the year of about 153 million village-wide liability and ended the year at about 107 million. Those, the liability can change drastically based on the assumptions that are used and market conditions. And so everything, changes year to year. So that reduction in the liability produced a favorable adjustment to the enterprise funds this year. For the pool, that was about 374,000. The tennis fund was 229,000, and the water fund saw a $1.9 million adjustment. The water fund also had a favorable variance in the depreciation expense of about $623,000 due to the various water well treatment projects. A few of them were not fully functional or operational throughout the fiscal year, so we did not record depreciation on them in that fiscal year. Okay, the next slide shows our fund balance for our governmental funds. Again, the major funds of the village are classified based on the GASB standards, and the governmental funds of the village are the general fund, capital fund, and library funds. The fund balance is further categorized in four categories, I guess. Non-spendable fund balance in the general fund represents inventory. Restricted fund balance, these are basically, for the general funds, these are reserves for termination payouts and reserves for bond payments. So when we issue bonds for capital projects and we complete the projects, if there are bond proceeds left over, we have to transfer them to the reserve and use that to specifically pay off the debt in the future for the future payments. We also have crime proceeds in the general fund that's collected by the police department. In the capital funds, again, the restricted fund balance pertains to bond proceeds. Those are legally restricted for those specific projects. And the library fund in the past has had restrictions from donor gifts. Assigned fund balance, these are amounts that are assigned for purchase orders. When we produce a purchase order, we have to set aside or encumber funds to pay those purchase orders. And as you know, the board during the budget process also assigns surplus to fund the next year's budget in lieu of raising taxes. So that would fall under assigned fund balance. Under the capital fund, assigned fund balance represents not bond proceeds, but taxpayer funds that are assigned to capital projects. So we assign those funds to those projects, but those could be reassigned. Any assigned fund balances can be reassigned to other expenditures. The library fund also assigns their entire fund balance to cover the future budget before any additional contributions are made from the general fund. And again, lastly, unassigned fund balance is really surplus, what remains, and that can be assigned for any purpose. When we look at the changes year over year, in the previous slides, we mentioned that the general fund had revenues of $67.5 million and expenditures of $65.3 million. So the revenues exceeding expenditures was $2.2 million, and that's what caused the increase in the fund balance year over year. For the capital fund, we see a decrease of $4.2 million, and that's a result of the enormous effort from the village. Village administrator told the department heads to complete capital projects. The village has about 65 general fund projects that are ongoing, and there's been a real push in the last year to really get those projects going and completed. So that's the reduction you see in the fund balance in the capital fund. Okay. The next slide shows for the remaining major funds of the village, the proprietary funds. They're classified that way. And within the proprietary funds, we have two distinctions. We have enterprise funds and internal service funds. As you know, the enterprise funds are the pool, tennis, and water fund. In lieu of fund balance, we show net position. Those two categories of net position are net investments in capital assets. Again, we talked about how the enterprise funds shows long-term assets and liabilities. So net investment in capital assets are all the capital assets, less accumulated depreciation, less any related debt for those assets. And unrestricted is anything that remains. When we look at the pool fund, we have great news to report this year. For the first time in 15 years, the pool fund is showing a positive net position. The pool fund in the past few years has shown a negative net position, and that's due to the long-term the capital debt, the debt to from capital improvements, so all the bonded debt, as well as OPEB. Right? So that has caused the pool fund to be in a negative net position. Based on my conversations with Moody's and New York State, it was a concern to them that the village had a fund with a negative net position. And so the village has made a concerted effort over the past few years to fund from the general fund to provide funding to pay out the debt service annually, because the pool is really considered a village asset. So the general fund has been paying out that debt, and the goal was to, over a period of time, bring the pool fund into a positive net position. So we achieved that in the 22-23 fiscal year, and going forward during the budget process, the general fund will not need to fund as much towards the pool fund going forward. So we'll discuss that a bit more during the next year's budget process. And again, the tennis and water fund are pretty healthy, have a positive net position. The increases year over year in the enterprise funds mainly comes from revenues exceeding expenditures, as well as the OPEB adjustment I spoke about earlier. The last fund is the internal service fund. This is the insurance reserve fund. This is called the risk management fund of the village. This fund is managed by the finance department, and it's used to pay all the insurance premiums, claims, and deductibles for the village. It manages the general liability insurance and workers' compensation insurance for the village. All the major funds contribute a proportionate share into this fund. So the general fund, library, water, pool, and tennis all contribute to fund this every year. We work very closely with our insurance broker to ensure that these expenditures are under control and remain low. And as a result, we have seen surpluses in this fund over a period of time. So this year, in the next budget process, we will look to reduce the contribution from the other funds into this fund to use up some of the surplus. All right, now we'll go into the results for the first quarter of this year. Again, the revenues for the general fund for the first quarter are $57.8 million, which represents about 89% of the revenues received of the overall budget, which is in line with the prior year. I do want to note that so far in the first quarter, the village has received some unbudgeted revenues that were not planned for. The village received $814,000 from the Community Benefit Fund as reimbursement for the Marylawn Avenue parking work that was done, the road work that was done. We also received $120,000 from the LIRR for the depreciation of the roads. And we also received $127,000 as a PSE&G rebate for the Village Hall HVAC project. So in total, for the first quarter, we've received a little over $1 million in unbudgeted revenues. I also want to note that last week I reported to the board that we finally received the FEMA reimbursement for the St. Paul's roof repair that was damaged during the tropical storm Isaias. And it was a very long effort over the last 2 years. It was definitely a team effort. I want to thank Village Administrator Ralph Swazi, Deputy Superintendent, or Superintendent of Building, Mr. Giovanello, for providing a lot of information to us that was requested by FEMA over these last 2 years. And especially I want to thank our senior accountant, Kevin Mitchell, who was the main contact with FEMA throughout this entire time, providing them all the requests that they, kept, calling and asking for more additional information. And they finally provided the reimbursement. So we were reimbursed the full cost of the repair of $471,000. 90% came from the federal government and 10% came from New York State. So very good news. We're very happy. That 471 is not included in these numbers as we just received it last week, but it will be included in the second quarter report. Okay. And then the expenses for the first quarter, we're pretty much in line with budget and prior year. We've committed 42% of the budget this year as opposed to 43% the prior year during the same time. Just want to note that we do budget for contingencies, and that helps, helps us from any unforeseen expenditures or emergencies that may occur throughout the year, and it helps avoid any large variances. So we do cover for any unforeseen situations that may arise throughout the year. So our expenditures are in line. I'll very quickly go over the a couple of slides regarding the cash balances for the village. For the period ending May 31st, 2023, the village had 12.8 million in the operating account for all the funds and 68.6 million in investments. And for the quarter ending August, we had 27.9 million in the operating account and 69 million in investments. Obviously, for the first quarter, we received first half tax payments, so that those numbers go up significantly because we receive first half taxes in June. And then they tend to trickle down until we receive the second half in December. I also want to note, these balances seem pretty high. But just to remind everyone, when people think about, how much we manage in terms of the budget, we always think about the general fund, 65 million, 60 million around there. But in reality, the village manages many multiple funds for the 22-23 fiscal year between the general fund, pool, tennis, water, and insurance reserve fund. We had 86.7 million of operating budget, and for the capital budget that was approved, we had another additional 23.4 million. So in totality, we had over $110 million that was approved for the 23-24 budget. But that doesn't take into account all the capital projects that carry forward from previous years. As you know, we have multi-million-dollar projects in the water fund for all the AOP treatment for water mains. And we started the year with a carryover of $20 million in the general fund projects. So we're managing upwards to $150 million on any given period of time and any given year. So that's pretty extensive. And the last couple of slides show the overtime by fund and department. And as you can see, for the 22-23 fiscal year, the village-wide overtime was almost identical to the previous year of 1.8 million. And so far for the first quarter this year, it's similar to the previous year as well of $500,000. So that's the update for the board. Are there any questions? Sorry, it was a lot of information.
Could you go over that again?
The sale, the sale of the property to the railroad, that was recent, right? Is that something we just approved recently, I thought?
No, so that
This is the long-term, the one while ago, then you're saying?
yes, this was the one that was approved in the 22-23 fiscal year. We received the funding.
Okay.
So this was a while ago.
Okay, not the recent one that we've been discussing. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I would say great work on the FEMA thing.
Oh, thank you.
Much appreciated that you all kept pursuing that and got it through. That was great. Because obviously that was a troubling issue with the village and you got a great resolution.
Yes, yes,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mayor, I just have one quick question. I saw a lot of glazed over eyes. And I don't blame anybody as I was following this. Can you give us just a general sense of how we're doing, what your thoughts are for the balance of the year?
So I would say the village is doing very, very well. Our fund balance, we ended the year with an excellent fund balance. That's something that Moody's, when I have my call with them every year, that's something they definitely look at. We are at the level of AAA rated communities to, maintain that level of fund balance. Our cash position is great. The one thing they do look at is OPEB liability. And as you heard, I just said, it went down $50 million. It went from 153 to 107 million. So that's something that they will be very happy to hear about. And so I would say the village is doing very well. Yeah.
Just one other quick thing on the backlog of capital projects. I remember at the end of last term, Terry Deegan was very involved, and I think a good friend here, Michael, has probably taken over. So what do we anticipate there?
You want to take that?
Is it's the whole team? It's the whole team, correct?
Yeah, so the capital projects, you're right, Trustee Deegan was on that from day one. And at the time he came in, we had about $27 million of capital projects. Some of them were waiting to start, some had started, some were finishing up, but a lot of the work is in getting them started. We also had a diminished DPW department at the time. So Mr. Brony, who was then the engineer, and Mr. Giminello and I sat down and strategized by bringing external resources in, and we started processing our projects in parallel instead of so linearly. And the pipeline basically exploded this year, late last year, and this year we're down to about 12 or 13 million right now. And we have some projects that are in process now at the library, HVAC and stuff, $1 million there. So you'll see it drop substantially. I still haven't reached single digits. When I do, I'm going to call Trustee Deegan up and let him know we reached it. But we have a lot of money.
Sounds like Deegan and Sullivan.
Yeah.
I think that's a team. Thank you very much.
I mean, I just have one question. On the revenue summary, the positive variance for police and court is pretty material. What's driving that? Is that more ticketing, or is that more court fees, or is it even split?
Tickets, plus the system we have used to collect has gone after past due notices. Also, there's been an increase in moving violations, and that usually generates higher fines. We also had a high number of suspended licenses and similar type, and that also drives up the fines that are collected.
Great. No, I know you guys have been very active, so thank you.
We try.
So we received the boring samples at the last meeting. Those tests went to the structural engineer and the architect. We have a phone call in with the architect. There was a change to the original scope of the project that we agreed on. I guess the board agreed on option 3. And there was a change with that option 3 of squaring off the building from the original RFP. So I have a phone call in with them to discuss the amount of this increase on the RFP. So there is a change to that.
They're aware of that, though, weren't they aware of that back in July when we?
They were aware of it, but the concern was they didn't bid it out that way. So we have to actually, I'm waiting for some information back from them. Depending on the cost, we might have to put a stop on it and issue another RFP for the change.
Because it'll be that substantial a change?
That's what they're telling me, but I'll bring that to the board as soon as I get that information.
Okay, we'll try to push them on that information.
Trying.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Blake.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Recreation has several items on the agenda this evening. Starting with number 5, which is the pool sewer line. Okay, thank you. The pool sewer line, which, as many of you know, went bad during the season. We're asking to declare an emergency so that we can avoid competitive bidding to allow to get this repair done now. Although the line mainly serves the pool, it also serves the recreation maintenance garage, and those restrooms are used by our staff on a daily basis. Additionally, the contractors would like to get the repairs done while the water is still on so they can make sure everything is good for next spring. Once we get that authorization from you nice folks, authorization would be requested to engage Orchid Sewer and Water Contracting Corporation from Garden City Park to replace the sewer line at the pool at an estimated cost of $39,880. And there are funds available in the pool operating budget. Number 6, purchase of a Ford F-350 pickup truck. Authorization is requested to approve the purchase of a 2024 Ford F-350 truck with a light package from Hempstead Ford Lincoln in Hempstead. Cost is $49,668, and this purchase is being made through a Westchester County contract. This is the final equipment item in our capital equipment line for this year, and upon its purchase, we will have been about $28,000 and change under budget on our purchases. And kudos to the purchasing department for finding all these terrific contracts and working with us to use Sourcewell and some of the other bidding cooperatives. We've done a really nice job on getting the equipment in a timely manner and at good prices. So thank you, Irene, and all the good people over in purchasing. That's all I have this evening. I'll be happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
If you want to give an update, I know there's on the fields. I know there's a lot of talk about the fields. I know Trustee Sullivan's been talking to you about that. If maybe for everyone.
Field conditions are improving week by week. We have been out working on all of the fields in the village, trying to go through them in a logical order. At St. Paul's, we have closed off approximately 1/3 of the field. You've all seen the fence around it, and that has gotten some heavy-duty work on it. We did circulate a note to all you folks last week. One of the things that we did for the first time in years, one of the pieces of equipment that we bought last year, the ball field conditioner machine has a thatching attachment, and we were able to thatch that field for the first time in recent memory. And they took away many dump trucks full of thatch. That area has been overseeded and seeded and aerated and treated, and the grass is really starting to come in nicely. If you happen to go over there, you'll see it's really filling in well. And now with the cooler weather, a lot of the crabgrass that had grown in at the late summer has started to die off, and the new grass that we planted is starting to choke it out. So it's eventually going to overspread the crabgrass, and we'll have good turf there. The rest of the fields that are not closed off have been given a lot of work. We did deep tining on 2 of the lacrosse fields. We've done slit seeding, both in a north and south and an east and west direction. We continue to overseed regularly on all of the heavy use areas, which are the goal mouths in most of the fields. The sprinkler system is on and working 5 days a week. We put a lot of water down on those fields. We are going to, when the fall season ends, we will be doing liming because the pH on all of the fields is still not correct. So we are going to be doing heavy liming on the fields. We are also going to be using a couple of those field covers in front of the goal mouths over the winter that will help to grow the grass in those heavy use areas. We continue to have a problem though with the fields being used an awful lot. And the problem in front of the goal areas is they're not just used during the games, but if you sit in my office on any given weekday and look out, there's 10 or 12 teams practicing, and they're all practicing by the goal areas, which is normal and understandable, but that is making it hard to get the grass to take off in those areas. Regardless, the fields are in better condition than they were last year, and we think they're going to keep improving. In the neighborhood parks, we have renovated the baseball field at Edgemere Park and the front field at Stewart, the #1 field. They both received complete new infields, all new sod, all new clay. They look terrific. That means that now every field in the neighborhood parks and Stewart Field have been renovated in the last 3 years. They're all in good condition. At Community Park, the grass is growing exceptionally well. I was down there this afternoon, and we have not had any of the brownouts and the dead areas that we usually get. Many of you may know on Field 3, the right field area was always a spot where the grass just wouldn't grow. It's growing in very nicely. We've groomed the turf several times, the synthetic turf. We've made some repairs on it. We put a new home plate on Field 4. And the grass down there is continuing to improve. So we're on the right track, and we're seeing the results. It's hard to do, but we have to be patient. Grass doesn't grow overnight, but we're getting the results that we're hoping to see.
Thank you.
Paul, quick question. I was walking over there on Saturday, and inside the fenced area, I think there was a tree that was taken down or something. It looks like that area has not been, there's, truck treads, and it's not level. It doesn't look like it's seeded. Is there a plan for that area?
Yeah, that actually happened after we went in there and did the thatching and the seeding. There was a tree that had to come down. The tree truck went in and didn't quite get out as easily as it would have liked. So we had a little mess with the tree truck in there, but that'll be restored. Absolutely.
What's the timing on that? Do you have a sense?
Well, it'll be done as soon as the problem is everybody wants everything done right now. And I'd like to tell you, we're going to go out and do it next week, but leaf season starts next week.
Right.
So we will get to that as soon as we can, but it's in the closed off area. We anticipate that area not being open until next fall. So there's plenty of time for us to get in and do the work on it. And we will do the work.
I've got it. Thanks.
And when do you expect? I know the leaf is starting, the tree planting, the fall tree planting. When is that expected?
We're hoping that you nice folks will award the bid at your next meeting. It's being opened next Thursday morning. And contractors have told us that due to the strange weather conditions this year, they can plant right through till the end of December. So we're hoping that we're going to get all 204 of those trees in before the end of the year.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Blake. Commissioner Jackson, and actually, I didn't make my statement yet. It includes a big compliment to you for the plan for the opinion poll. It was beautifully executed, and thank you to all the officers who assisted, and to you for making the plan.
Thank you, Mayor. I will let the officers know. I have one item on the agenda. It's number 4. Last 2 meetings ago, you approved the indemnification of officers named in the suit. There's an additional officer being cited, and that's all we're asking for is to add him to the list. Also, I just want to mention a couple of good items. The AAA recently had their award ceremony for traffic safety. The highest awards given to any Long Island communities in Nassau Suffolk was the Gold Award. Only 5 communities got that, and we're one of them. And what AAA said was they cited the village for stepping up and adjusting their many safety efforts in 2022 to keep their roadway incidents down through initiatives such as reduced impaired driving, speed reduction, seatbelt use, safe teen driving, and pedestrian cycling safety. So it was fine work of the Traffic Commission, DPW, and the Police Department. We really made some inroads, and AAA took note of that. Also, on a really good positive note, on Monday, I'm a Ranger fan, but I went to the Islander game, and I did wear blue. But Sergeant Riley from this department was a major in the Army, and they gave him quite a send-off for his heroics and leadership in Afghanistan during Operation Enduring Freedom. And he was honored very well, and we were proud. Many of our officers and civilian personnel responded. It was quite an act. He's quite a cop and quite a supervisor, and we were proud to be there for him. They really gave him a nice, ovation and also a real good send off. So it was very nice to see. He was a Purple Heart recipient and a Bronze Star recipient for his time in Afghanistan.
Great.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Great, thank you. Anyone? All right, thank you, Commissioner, and Chief Kern.
Good evening, Mayor, Board of Trustees. The fire department has nothing on the formal agenda. However, I'd just like to report our alarms for the month of October. We had 96 total alarms, 85 of which were our Signal 8s, our lesser alarms, which are automatic fire alarms set off due to cooking, maybe at Trustee Marciano's house, elevator rescues, carbon monoxide calls, things like that. 11 general alarms, 4 reported building fires in the village, which luckily turned out to be false alarms, 4 mutual aids to surrounding departments, and 1 extrication call. Other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Very simply, to Chief Perella, to the assistant chiefs in the back who have all been at my house, not once, but twice over the last 30 days. Twice because ADT didn't do the second one the right way, right? But Assistant Chief Toffin showed up at my house twice and we did it right. But bottom line, gentlemen, you are the consummate professionals, right? I mean, the fact that, we all joke about this, but we take it I know you gentlemen take it very, very seriously. You do, your staff does, right? And it gives us a great amount of confidence, right, and comfort living in this village that God forbid we need you, you come. And I say thank you to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Chief. Mr. Fishberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I have nothing on the agenda.
And Mr. Swazi?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, trustees. Good evening, residents of Garden City. Mayor, first of all, I just want to thank purchasing and all department heads for the aggressive purchase of all the equipment that was in the budget. As Mr. Blake stated, that was his last piece. DPW has all that's done. It's we put a lot of money toward that equipment. It's nice to get it in early because it takes a while to get in. I'm going to handle number 12. Mr. Brony mentioned I'd be taking number 12. This is PFA's settlement with DuPont and 3M Company. Board authorization is requested to approve the potential acceptance of PFA's settlements. PFAs they're sometimes referred to as forever chemicals. The village potable water supply wells have been contaminated by certain PFAs chemicals. This settlement goes back to about February, March of 2019. The village retained Shear Edling LLP to represent it in class action litigation for reimbursement of its treatment expenses against the 3M and DuPont corporations as the manufacturers responsible for the chemical contaminants. These chemicals are used in consumer products, industrial applications. The most familiar one people might associate with is non-stick frying pans. There is initial court approval of settlements that could yield net reimbursement payments to the village of approximately $5 million or more. Both Shear Edling LLP and Village's Environmental Council, 5 Page and Resol PC. Mr. Udelson is on the Zoom, I believe, if trustees have questions I can't handle. Have provided the village with memorandums analyzing the proposed settlements and identifying the pros and cons of same. Both law firms recommended on balance in favor of accepting the settlements if finally approved by the courts and not opting out of the classes in the litigation. Shear Edling also represents a lot of other water suppliers in New York State. So we weren't the first to enter the class action, but I'm glad we did. I hope the board will support that. Item number 16, water penalties. So the library has a water budget of approximately $6,000 every year for their water usage. But this year they got a bill for about close to $14,000. And the reason for that is because the HVAC system which we're replacing, has two main components besides the thermostats, which John mentioned tonight. It has the air handler inside and has a cooling tower outside. The old cooling tower that's being replaced was leaking like a sieve. It was water pouring out of it. As you know, the facilities is the responsibility of the village. The library had no control over the rate of loss of water. So the water department and through DPW is asking for the late fees and the excessive water fees to be removed and allow the treasurer to take them off the books. Those are my two items, and if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Oh, maybe you want me to do an update as well.
I thought you could give us an update on the stained glass windows. I know there's a little more information there.
So my favorite topic is stained glass. So after the last meeting, I gave a very thorough update about Mr. Bote's visit to our village. He spent 3.5 to 4 hours in the chapel. Actually looked at the skylight as well as the windows in there. And just a couple of days ago, I received a conditions report from him. I've reached out to him today if he could identify the conditions with the individual windows, because I know he numbered them west to east. So while I read it, I haven't absorbed it yet. I'd like to get the information from him so it's clear to me, so I can then summarize it for the board so you can make future decisions on this. I also anticipating the momentum behind the St. Paul's effort in the recent opinion poll, and the fact that 3 well-known companies who live, work around stained glass professionally have recommended that these windows need to come out to be restored. I reached out to clarify. We do know that Mr. Bote would take them down, crate them, and transport them to his own storage facility, and he would store them there for up to 10 years if we chose him at no cost to the village. But there's an outstanding question of insurance. So I reached out to our insurance agents. They brought an expert into the phone call who deals with this type of asset. And I gave them the MIR report, which is a firm in Chicago that gave us a cost estimate a number of years ago. Everything is contained within there except for the horizontal skylight, which is about 13 by 14 feet. They gave me a price of approximately $6,000 a year to insure everything except for the skylight, which wasn't included, but I can't think that the skylight would substantially alter that price. So I was very surprised at the reasonableness of that number. It's not at all prohibitive. So we now have a solution. We have multiple vendors who provide a solution. One can provide a complete solution, and we have the insurance question answered. Mr. Bote did also, Trustee Torino had asked about restoration cost. He has provided numbers, again, but they're not associated with the individual panels. So I would like to wait until I can, get all the details and re-summarize it for the board so you can make a decision, but they're also not outlandish at all.
Thank you for that update, for all the work, and I'm hoping we'll be able to, now knowing that this is the best step regardless of we now have the opinion poll, so we're looking to preserve part or all of the building. But regardless of what step we take, I think it's established now they need to be removed to be restored. And I'm hopeful that we can get this done before the winter to avoid any further damage to the windows. So thanks for the work. All right. Any questions on anything else for Mr. Swazi? Okay, so I wanted to make a quick statement. This is our first meeting since the public opinion poll, and I want to thank all the Garden City residents who came out for the St. Paul's public opinion poll on Saturday, the 21st. We had 4,339. I'm sorry, actually, it's a little bit more with the affidavit ballots, but over 4,300 residents came out to participate in the poll. 2,647 in favor of option 1 to support continued efforts by the Board of Trustees to save part or all of the building, and 1,709 choosing option 2 demolition. Your voices have been heard. This is an important first step towards making a decision on the St. Paul's main building, and I think we're all excited about moving forward here. There is much more work to be done, and we recognize the difficult task ahead of us. So that work will include hiring experts to assist us in assessing community needs, evaluating the affordability of different options after uses have been determined, and assessing the value of those options, the value they would provide to the community. So these steps will take time, but we will apply the same rigor and momentum to the process that we applied to the implementation and execution of the public opinion poll. So stay tuned. We will be back and sharing with you the next steps. And thank you all for your participation and your interest. All right, do we have any trustee comments? Questions? Nope. All right, we can move on to the approval of the minutes, beginning with the approval of the October 5th, 2023 regular board meeting revised minutes. Is there a motion?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, the minutes are approved.
Mr. Willoughby seems to have a question.
Oh, citizen comments on agenda items. Let me finish with the minutes, then we'll get back to that. Okay, next, the approval of the October 19th, 2023 regular board meeting minutes.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And that passes unanimously as well. All right, we'll move on now to citizen comments on agenda items in the room. Just remember to state your name and address for the record.
It's Steve Alardi, 139 Meadow Street. Item number 7. I worked at the library from 1984 to 2020. How it could not be known by the staff there that there's issues with cooling in different areas of the building and the thermostats needing attention, that was a problem for most of the time I worked there. So how you do an HVAC project and that's not part of the scope, and the staff or people at the library don't bring that to the attention when the project's being scoped out, it's kind of hard to imagine. The amount of years I spent in that building and people freezing in the summer or in the winter or overheating and thermostats constantly being played with. I don't understand how that wasn't part of the scope. Quick question on item number 12. Is the $5 million you mentioned the total for the village, or is there part of that go to the firm representing?
So I mentioned it was net. So the actual settlement, that's preliminary settlement, is a little over $7 million. About 23%, I believe, of that goes to the firm. I also forgot to mention, Mayor, since he brought it up again, that the intention of getting that money, it goes to the water department. It would be used. I talked this over. This will we use it to pay off some of the bans, so we won't borrow as much to bond the AOP settlements. So.
Thank you.
On item 13, what was the cause of the fire with the recycling vehicle?
There was no formal investigation done, but after speaking to the mechanics, they believe the turbo was superheated, and when the ignition was shut off, it combusted the engine compartment.
In item 16, I'm unsure why the library wouldn't be responsible for a leak. I mean, many residents come with very high water bills, and it turns out they have a leak in their sprinkler system. They're responsible for it. And I think Mr. Swazi mentioned that their normal bill is like $6,000, and this was 14. So why, if the village is going to absorb anything, why would it not be the difference between their normal bill and the extra amount due to the leak.
I think Mr. Swazi explained, but can you repeat it?
Yeah, this is all water customers are billed 4 times a year. So this is the 4th bill. So they've already paid, that 6,000 included the whole year. So they've very substantially paid most of their budgets. This is excessive. And unlike a homeowner who has control of the systems they're using to discharge water, internal to the house and external, this is a piece of infrastructure that the library would not touch. And we do know now that a small leak can contribute a lot of dollars to a water bill. So this is just excessive, and it's really not within their control. And if we charge them for it, it's the same money we gave them. It doesn't, the water department is in a healthy position. We could absorb this. I think it's the right thing to do. And that's why I've asked the board to support it.
Mr. O'Lardy, as the library trustee, consider the fact that the village is the landlord for the building. So charging a tenant for what is the landlord's responsibility would be anathema to the entire process. So while I understand what your comments are, factually, there should be no surcharge to the library for what would be and should be the village's operation. As with regard to your comment with regard to the legal fees, this is a class action litigation in which the legal fees are determined by submission to the federal judge who signs off on it. And it is actually pretty much coming off the top of the complete settlement. So as Mr. Swazi mentioned, it would be a net sum to the village pursuant to the district judge's order.
Okay. And thank you to Mrs. Wu for her detailed report on the finances.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room with a comment on an agenda item?
Jonathan Debridge, 90 Huntington Road. I'm also here to represent the GCAA as a board member and president of the Little League. Item number 20 is we're very excited to have the opportunity to have the Little League parade again this year for the first time in 5 years. And we wanted to personally invite all of you to join us pending its approval for the morning of April 6th, 2024. So thank you.
Thank you. Looking forward to it. Anyone else in the room with a comment on an agenda item? All right, no one else? Anyone on Zoom with a comment on an agenda item? No, okay. We'll vote on the consent calendar, removing number 8. Do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar, removing number 8?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that is unanimous. All right, do we have any citizen comments on non-agenda items? Mr. Welton?
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, trustees. John Wilton, Chamber of Commerce. Milo, which is at 953 Compass Point heading, it's next to Sushi Art, used to be called Dashing Diva. It unfortunately closed. There is a restaurant group looking at it. There's 75 corn stalks up. They'll stay up for the next few weeks. They're completed. There's been some consternation by our business community on 7th Street about the construction. Be that as it may, no matter what time of the year you do it, there's going to be some consternation, but they're concerned, obviously, as it gets closer to Thanksgiving, it may affect their net profit, but it is what it is, and we've tried to mitigate it as best we can. I have gotten approximately 4 dozen phone calls about the smoke vape humidor shop going into where Beauty Kiss used to be, which is directly across the street from Leo's. I have spoke to Giuseppe, which I knew the answer before I called him, but I wanted to make certain I was speaking with the proper language. And I explained to them that as of right use, it's a retail store with components being sold off shelves. The analogy I gave was it's similar to 7th Street stationery store selling products, and they're tobacco related. A lot of the citizens that call me were complaining about that it's illegal to sell vaping mechanisms, and I said it's not illegal. It's illegal to sell them to somebody under the age of 18 in the state of New York. But if in fact they did do that, they would be subject to jurisdictional control by whatever agency would catch them doing that. There was a rumor, I got 19 phone calls in the last 2 days about Ivorone not going forward. Ivorone is going forward. Spoke to the architect less than 2 hours ago. Everything's in place. Building department knows it. So that was an unfounded chicken telegraph, unnecessary stress on the community. Elaine Phillips is rolling out a county-wide senior citizen discount program. So they launched it last Thursday. I'm helping them to format it to go out. So the process is starting. They're not certain. They have about 50 businesses county-wide that have participated. So that's rolling out. I can't give you more than that. They asked me to go and meet with them, and I'll try to help facilitate it as best we can. I did go last Thursday night to a Sands event at the Coliseum. I'm going to try to explain it as best I can. It was for the Procurement Academy attendees, which were other businesses throughout Nassau County. And there were about 350 people. It was hors d'oeuvres, cocktails, a couple of speeches by the Nassau Council of Chambers president, and really no input from the Sands itself, but from different surrounding chambers that spoke about whether they were for or against. All of them that I heard were for, the ones that were the surrounding communities. I left after about an hour and a half. I was told it lasted about 3.5 hours, and it was, to me, it was a reward party for them thinking they're going forward. So whether it is or not, but that's how they perceived it, and that's how they portrayed it to the people that attended it. And in conclusion, on 10/25 is Small Business Saturday, which is actually advertised by American Express, but it's for anybody, any credit card or whatever. So it's Small Business Saturday. And thank you for approving the Christmas tree and Hanukkah Festival of Lights. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
One quick question, Ivorone, when is it opening? People are asking, and that probably started the rumor about it.
Giuseppe, when is it opening? I think he and I can both say it's going to be a year.
It's at least a year, yes.
A year from now?
Probably a year.
Yeah, I would say probably a year.
Wow. Okay. And
John?
why so long? Do we know?
Early stages. I mean, they're still not complete. You know, they're still submitting stuff. They're still working out the kinks and design and stuff. So, yeah. Could be.
Right.
No.
Well, the other big issue is that unfortunately, I mean, he and I both know that unfortunately, our fire marshals are just very overworked, and they don't seem to give us the attention we need to move forward.
That's the main hurdle that all the commercial district has, is the fire marshal.
What about the restaurant going into Walk Street space?
I was in it 2 weeks ago. My opinion is it's about 85% done. It looks really great. The steel work that was done is done. The structural engineer signed off on it. It appears ready to go, and I think they have all their inspections almost done.
They're almost complete. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would think, and I don't think they'll be open by Christmas, but Murphy's Law, you never know. It might be right after the beginning of the new year. Listen, they're anxious to open.
All right. And thank you for the December 10th event planning. That looks very nice.
Okay.
John, I just wanted to ask you about that event that the Sands put on. So the bulk of the chamber members, presidents were for the Sands
No.
Casino?
The Nassau Council of Chambers represents 46 chambers in Nassau County.
Right.
The president of the Nassau Council of Chambers took it upon himself to make a statement at the hearing that day.
Yes, he did.
That
Yeah,
the
he
Council of
did it then
Chambers
too. Yeah.
was going forward and endorsing it. I spoke with him immediately after that and said, you had no right to make that representation. You never polled me, nor when I spoke to some of the other chambers on the North Shore, who could care less. They have
Yes.
they have no input whatsoever or concern. And he said, look, this is, I spoke to the people that it most affects. He happens to be the past president of the East Meadow Chamber of Commerce. So, they got $10 million. So that says a lot. But the only people that spoke were people that I would venture to say were pro it at the actual, legislative hearing. And there was no oral representation or any speeches or anything by the Sands people at the event. Listen, to me, it was a procurement academy party.
Right.
I think they were rewarding people that they thought maybe potentially would support them. There were a lot of contractors there, different business people there. And I think they were just feeding them and giving them some cocktails and saying, everybody, let's go down the road. Let's go down the yellow brick road.
Okay. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Mr. Wilton,
Yes, sir.
most importantly, I'd like to thank you extremely for your efforts on behalf of the village and going forward. We would look to hear from you more often.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you. From one volunteer to another, well stated.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comments on non-agenda items in the room? Anyone on Zoom with a comment on a non-agenda item?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in
Second.
favor?
Well, that was quick.
All right, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Good night.
No, thanks.
Charlie, you didn't jump that in your code.
Wow.